Yes, now, Democrat Senator Alex Padilla of California. He is a member of the Judiciary Committee and a co-sponsor of a new bill on court ethics and transparency. Thanks for coming on about this. I guess my first question would be, is there anything that the committee is looking at as it pertains to what Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas did, accepting these large gifts? Even a house his mother lived in, getting paid for. Is there any consequence to this, or are you looking at reforms moving forward?
Well, that's exactly the purpose of the hearing this morning. Good morning, Meek. And before we go on, let me just say happy birthday.
It's a parade.
Thank you. Very nice.
Look, as you're all well aware, the Judiciary Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Durbin, have tried a couple of things. Was there going to be an opportunity to bring Justice Thomas in for questions? That was a long shot. We reached out to Chief Justice Roberts, and he's declined to be in front of the committee. And so it tells us, frankly, what we've already known. The Supreme Court is unwilling to police themselves. To think that the reports that we've all read are unconscionable, and just remind us that the highest court in the land should not be subject to the lowest ethical standards. And if they won't police themselves, there's clearly an opportunity for Congress to come in and establish those clear standards for investigating when misconduct is reported, to have a better, clearer standard for recusals and other ethics laws, and make sure that it's an enforceable code that the Supreme Court justices need to be held to.
So, Senator, Chief Justice Roberts has declined to appear at this hearing. It is rare, we should point out, for Supreme Court justices to appear at congressional hearings. But if he were there, what are the specific questions you would ask him or Justice Thomas? What are you getting at here?
Right, exactly. Well, first of all, when it comes to the reports on Clarence Thomas's activity, the gifts he's received, the luxury travel, et cetera, that's just unacceptable. Think about the ethics standards and requirements that are imposed on the President of the United States, administration officials, every single member of Congress. To think that that same standard does not apply to Supreme Court justices is surprising and shocking to a lot of people, especially recognizing how big of decisions that the Supreme Court makes. Not just on issues of, give a couple of examples in recent years. Supreme Court have infringed on our voting rights. They're under the protection of the federal voting rights. They've made it easier for wealthy individuals to influence politics and campaigns, and all the issues that make their way to the Supreme Court, whether it's taxation issues, choice issues. Look at the impact of the Dobbs decision last year, gerrymandering, and everything else. There's no wonder why there's such a crisis of confidence in the decisions by the Supreme Court. They should be eager to restore that confidence, to restore public confidence in the institution as a body. And if they won't act, then it's time that Congress does. And again, that's the gist of our hearing today.
Yeah, Elise, it just seems, I know you have a question, but I look at what has happened, what has transpired with this Republican donor and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and that set aside his wife and the text to Mark Meadows. You have to set that aside, I guess. But it's hard to see how he's not completely exposed, and how does his decision-making not get impacted from receiving such huge, lavish, several $100,000 gifts?
And I guess now that I think about it, you remember the famous story when Dick Cheney shot someone on a trip, and that, I guess he had his own plane, but Scalia was on the trip. And, Senator Padilla makes the good point that most people don't realize that the standards are so lax for members of the Supreme Court. And I actually, frankly, am surprised, because I just assumed it would be similar to the executive branch or congressional. Can you talk about a few rules that just simply do not apply to the Supreme Court justices?
Yeah. Well, again, for lack of a clear and enforceable ethics standard, we end up with this type of reported activity. For members of Congress, just as a counter example, limitations on who we can receive gifts from and what amounts. All you have to disclose are your income sources every given year. And clearly I can't vote and should not vote on anything where I have a conflict of interest. If I have a financial interest that may skew judgment, I should be recused from those decisions. To think that does not apply to the highest court in the land is frightening and clearly needs to be fixed.
Democratic Senator Alex Padilla of California, thank you very much for coming on. We'll be watching the hearing today. Turning now